Sometimes, the greatest banishment is not from a place, but from the person you believed you were destined to be. And sometimes, it is only in that desolate wilderness that you truly find where you belong. My name is Ilara, and once I was a creature of moonlight and whispers, a daughter of the Solara Coven, one of the oldest and most revered vampire lines. Our world was one of ancient elegance, shadowed estates, and a rigid adherence to tradition. I was bred for a life of duty, destined to bolster alliances and preserve the purity of our blood. But my heart, it beat to a different rhythm, one that led me down a forbidden path, straight into the arms of Lysander, a scion of the rival Lunaris Coven. Their blood ran cold and fierce, ours sun-kissed and refined, or so we were taught. Our love was a whisper in the dark, a dangerous secret that, once exposed, shattered my world. The High Council, my own elders, deemed my transgression an unforgivable betrayal, an insult to our ancestors, a stain upon our pristine lineage. There was no mercy, no understanding, only judgment. I was stripped of my title, my family name, and banished from the Solara Coven forever, cast out into the mortal lands, my immortality a hollow comfort without kin. My home, the only world I had ever known, became a haunting memory. The last I saw of Lysander, he was bound, dragged away by his own coven, his eyes holding a desperation I could not forget, a desperation that mirrored my own. I was alone, adrift, a ghost in a world that had no place for a disgraced vampire. Chapter 1. The biting wind was my only companion, tearing at the tattered remnants of my fine garments. For days I had walked, a creature of the night exiled from the familiar shadows of my past. My usual strength, the effortless grace of my kind, was slowly eroding under the relentless sun and the gnawing pangs of a hunger I dared not sate on the innocent mortals who populated these foreign lands. I was deep within the Redwood territories, a wild, untamed expanse whispered to be under the dominion of wolves, creatures of instinct and raw power, the sworn enemies of all vampire kind. Every rustle in the undergrowth sent a jolt of icy fear through me. Every distant howl echoed the warning my elders had instilled since my fledgling days. Beware the fangs of the beast. My thirst was a burning inferno, my body weakened, my senses dulled by deprivation. The elegant silks I once wore were now torn and soiled, clinging to my chilled skin. The crisp scent of pine and damp earth was overwhelming, so different from the sterile, ancient air of the Solara estates. It was a primal world, and I, a creature of refined shadows, felt utterly exposed. Then I heard it, not a distant howl, but the snap of a twig, the heavy tread of Pause on the forest floor, too close, too deliberate. Panic seized me. I forced my tired limbs into a run. The forest floor a dizzying blur of roots and shadows. My heightened senses, though dulled, picked up the scent, wet fur, raw power, and something else, a primal musk that was distinctly lupine. I was being hunted. A snarl ripped through the air, chilling me to the bone. I stumbled, my vision blurring, my breath catching in my throat. A flash of gray fur, a growl that vibrated through the ground, and I was thrown backward, landing hard against the base of a colossal redwood. My head hit with a sickening thud, and for a moment the world spun into darkness. When my vision cleared, I found myself staring up into eyes of molten gold, burning with an intense predatory focus. A massive wolf, larger than any I had ever seen in the forbidden texts, stood over me, its teeth bared in a silent threat. Its fur was the color of midnight, rippling with muscle. This was no ordinary wolf. This was an alpha. My blood ran cold, not from the chill, but from the absolute terror that gripped me. This was the end. A low growl rumbled deep in its chest, a sound that promised oblivion. But then,
As its eyes locked with mine, something shifted. A flicker of something. Recognition? Curiosity? It tilted its head, its gaze piercing through my fear, right into the core of my vulnerability. You are not of this land, vampire. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed in my mind, not through my ears, but directly into my consciousness. Why do you trespass in Redwood? My voice, when it came, was a mere whisper, rasping and dry. I have been cast out, banished. The Alpha's golden eyes narrowed, studying me. Banished? By your own kind? He stepped closer, and I instinctively flinched, bracing for the final blow. But it didn't come. Instead, a strange scent, not predatory, but protective, surrounded me, laced with the smell of pine and rain-soaked earth. You carry the scent of pain, little shadow. And something else, a broken bond. The words were a shock. Wolves were supposed to be mindless beasts, incapable of such perception. This one, however, spoke with the wisdom of ages. My head swam, the exhaustion finally claiming me. As consciousness slipped, the last thing I felt was a large, warm muzzle nudging my cheek, and a strange sense of being both utterly terrified and, impossibly, safe. Chapter 2. When I awoke, the world was a blur of muted light and the overwhelming sense of wolf. Not the raw, aggressive smell of the forest, but a richer, more settled aroma of pack, of hearth. I lay on a bed of furs, rough yet surprisingly soft, within a dwelling made of ancient logs and stone. A fire crackled nearby, casting dancing shadows on the walls. My thirst was still a burning void, but the debilitating ache.
My head had subsided. I pushed myself up, my limbs heavy and sluggish. The furs shifted, and a pair of golden eyes met mine from across the room. The Alpha. He sat on a carved wooden chair, his human form as imposing as his wolf. He was tall, powerfully built, with broad shoulders and dark, unruly hair. His face was rugged, edged with lines of command, his jaw firm. But it was his eyes that held me captive. The same molten gold that had stared into my soul in the forest, now holding a complex mix of wariness and something akin to possessiveness. He watched me for a long moment, then spoke, his voice deep and gravelly, yet surprisingly gentle for one so formidable. "You are awake, vampire." "Where am I?" My voice was still hoarse. "My lodge, my territory. You are fortunate I found you before my patrol did. They would not have been so patient." His gaze was steady, unwavering. "You are Ilara of the Solara, are you not? Though your name is now stripped, your bloodline is known." "How do you know my name?" I whispered, fear coiling in my stomach. The wolves, they knew everything. "I am Kale, Alpha of the Redwood Pack. We know much that your cloistered kind chooses to ignore." He rose slowly, his movements fluid and powerful, like a predator. He walked towards a rough-hewn table, pouring a dark liquid into a goblet. "Drink this. It will sustain you for a time." I hesitated, my instinct screaming danger. "What is it?" "Not blood, if that is your concern. A potent herbal draft. My pack healer ensures its efficacy." He pushed the goblet towards me. My thirst was agonizing, overriding my fear. With trembling hands I took it, the metallic tang of herbs filling my nostrils. I drank, and felt a strange warmth spread through my veins, easing the worst of the burning. It wasn't the life-giving essence of blood, but it offered a temporary reprieve. "Why?" I asked, looking up at him, utterly bewildered. "Why keep me alive? Why bring me here?" Kale returned to his chair, his expression unreadable. "Because you are here now, and because of this." He extended his hand, palm up. A faint, almost invisible symbol shimmered on his skin, a delicate, interwoven pattern of crescent moons and suns. It was ancient, recognizable even to me,
from the forbidden texts of the pacts made between our ancestors and theirs. The mark of the forbidden mate. My blood ran cold. The forbidden mate. The whispers of old wives' tales, the darkest secrets of my coven, the very reason for the perpetual war between vampires and wolves. It was a myth, a legend, a story told to frighten unruly fledglings. The joining of a vampire and a wolf was an abomination, an impossibility. And yet, here it was, undeniable, pulsing faintly on his skin. And to my horror, a faint echo of the same pattern now pulsed on.
My own wrist, as if seared there by his touch in the forest. No, I breathed, my voice barely audible. It's not possible. I was meant for Lysander. I loved a vampire. Love does not dictate destiny, Alara, Kael said, his gaze intense. The ancient pacts dictate this. When one of the Solara bloodline, pure and untainted by mortal love, is cast out and enters the territory of the Redwood Alpha without intent of harm, and the Alpha is unbonded, the claiming can occur. It is rare, a sign of desperate times, an attempt by the old gods to mend what was broken millennia ago. You are mine now, by ancient law. His declaration hung in the air, heavy with meaning, with destiny. My head reeled. Banished from my kind for loving a vampire, only to be claimed by an alpha wolf, the sworn enemy, as his forbidden mate. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. My fear was profound, but beneath it, a tiny, dangerous flicker of curiosity ignited. Chapter 3. Days bled into nights within the Alpha's lodge, a confusing tapestry of apprehension and grudging realization. The initial terror of being Kael's prisoner slowly gave way to a dawning understanding of my predicament. I was not truly a prisoner in the conventional sense. I was claimed, a new identity thrust upon me. Kael did not chain me, nor did he restrict my movements within the confines of his surprisingly vast and ancient lodge. But I knew, deep in my bones, that stepping outside its protective wards would be an act of defiance, and likely an act of suicide. The Alpha himself was a conundrum. He was formidable, undeniably so, his presence filling every room with an unspoken power. His pack, a constant presence around the lodge, eyed me with open hostility, their snarls and narrowed gazes making it clear their Alpha's claim was a bitter pill for them to swallow. Only Kael's word kept me safe from their collective rage. Yet, despite their animosity, he never forced me, never touched me beyond the brief moments of establishing his claim. He merely watched. He observed. He listened. One evening, as the fire crackled, casting long, dancing shadows, Kael began to speak, his voice a low rumble that resonated through the quiet room. Our ancestors, the first Redwood Alpha and the first matriarch of the Solara Coven, they were not enemies, Alara. They were allies, protectors of the balance. There was a time when our kinds worked in tandem, not in opposition. He spoke of ancient times, of a world before the Great Sundering, when a powerful curse divided their people and ours, breeding mistrust and hatred. He spoke of the desperate attempts to mend the rift, culminating in the pacts that foretold a time when an outcast of one bloodline, pure and lost, would find herself in the path of an alpha, and their union would either restore the balance or shatter it forever. He spoke of the weight of leadership, the burden of his pack's future, and the silent loneliness that came with it. My people believe you are a witch, a harbinger of doom, he continued, his gaze direct. Your people, I am certain, believe I am a monstrous beast. Both are truths, born of fear and ancient prejudice. But the old laws, they are absolute. I listened, captivated despite myself. The narrative of my own coven had always been one of pure, unquestioning righteousness. of wolves as barbaric, mindless creatures. To hear this other history from the mouth of their alpha was disorienting. It challenged everything I had ever believed. I started to see beyond the monster I had been taught to fear. I saw a leader burdened by tradition, by a destiny he did not choose, but accepted. And if I refuse this claim, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The laws are ancient, Alara. To reject the bond once it is formed would bring a curse of unimaginable proportions upon both our peoples, a blight, a famine, a darkness that would consume all. Our ancestors knew the stakes, which is why the claim is so rare and so binding. You cannot leave without my permission, not without breaking those ancient laws, and not without inviting destruction upon us all. His words settled over me, heavy and suffocating. My banishment hadn't freed me. It had merely traded one cage for another, albeit one with far higher stakes. Yet, as I looked at him, at the quiet strength in his eyes, I felt a flicker of something new. Not fear, but a strange, unsettling curiosity. Perhaps, I thought, there was more to this beast than the legends allowed. Chapter 4. The realization that my destiny was now inextricably bound to Kyael's, and by extension to the Redwood Pack, settled over me like a heavy shroud. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, a fragile bridge began to form between us. Kyael, for all his imposing stature and alpha authority, possessed an unexpected patience. He never pressed me, never demanded more than a shared silence, often across the roaring fire, while he worked on maps or examined reports from his patrols. I started to observe the pack from afar, venturing cautiously to the edges of the lodge, still within the protective aura of Kyael's claim. I saw the playful roughhousing of the pups, the fierce loyalty of the warriors, the quiet wisdom of the elders. It was a community, raw and untamed, but undeniably vibrant, a stark contrast to the sterile, calculated existence of the Solara Coven. Some of the younger wolves, driven by curiosity, would sometimes watch me, their initial hostility slowly giving way to a more guarded wonder. A young she-wolf, Lyra, occasionally left a small, freshly picked flower or a smooth river stone at my door, a silent gesture of grudging acceptance. One evening, Kyael found me by the large window overlooking the snow-dusted forest, the pale moonlight reflecting off the ancient trees. "You miss your home," he stated, rather than asked. I turned to him, my gaze distant. My home banished me. I miss the idea of it, perhaps, the comfort of the familiar, not the cold judgment. A bitter laugh escaped me. I was an outcast even before I was formally exiled. My heart beat too freely, I suppose, for the rigid confines of Solara tradition. He nodded, a profound understanding in his golden eyes. Freedom is a burden, Ilara. We are all bound by something, be it duty, blood, or prophecy. He settled into a chair, his large frame making it seem small. Tell me of your lost love, Lysander. His unexpected request startled me. I had kept Lysander's memory locked away, a painful wound. But Kyael's steady gaze held no judgment, only an invitation. And so, hesitantly at first, I spoke. I told him of Lysander's sharp wit, his forbidden touch, the thrill of their clandestine meetings under the twin moons. I spoke of the desperate hope we had harbored, that love could bridge the ancient divide. And then the crushing weight of betrayal, of being exposed, of the swift, brutal banishment. My voice cracked with the lingering pain. He was beautiful, intelligent, from a rival coven, yes, but human in his desires, or so I thought. Kyael listened, his expression unreadable, but a depth of empathy resonated in his silence. When I finished, the quiet was profound. A love born of defiance often burns brightest, and then burns out, he finally said. It is a potent force, but often built on sand. My ancestors knew such loves.
They learned that true bonds are forged not in fleeting passion, but in shared vulnerability, in the recognition of another soul. He paused. You feel a pain of rejection, not just from your coven, but from the very idea of love itself. His words, sharp and insightful, pierced through my carefully constructed defenses. He saw the core of my wounds. In that moment, watching the firelight dance in his eyes, I realized he understood loneliness in a way Lysander, for all his charm, never truly had. Kael, the formidable alpha, bore the weight of his entire pack, an isolation of command I could now glimpse. A strange, fragile warmth began to bloom in my chest, a sensation I hadn't felt in what felt like an eternity. It was a seed of connection, planted in the fertile ground of shared solitude. Chapter 5. The unspoken understanding between Kael and me deepened with each passing day. The lodge, once a cage, began to feel less like a prison and more like a sanctuary. My banishment had stripped me bare, but in this stark new world, I was beginning to find a new kind of freedom. Kael encouraged it. He would speak of his ancestral lands, of the spirits of the forest, of the balance that needed to be maintained. He told me old redwood legends, tales of courage, sacrifice,
and the raw, untamed magic that pulsed through their blood. One afternoon, he found me humming a mournful vampire lullaby I remembered from my childhood, my fingers tracing patterns on the cold stone of the hearth. "You have a voice," he noted, his gaze thoughtful. "Do you have an instrument?" I smiled wistfully. I carried a small lute, a gift from my old nursemaid. It was one of the few things I took with me, though it was destroyed in my flight. Without a word, Kael disappeared into a back room of the lodge. He returned minutes later, carrying a lute, ancient and exquisitely crafted, made of dark, polished wood and intricate silver inlays. "This belonged to an ancestor," he explained, presenting it to me. "A lore keeper. She played for the pack gatherings, told stories through song." My fingers trembled as I took it, the smooth wood warm beneath my touch. It was a profound gesture, a gift steeped in his own history, an offering of trust. I plucked a hesitant string, and a soft, melodic note filled the silence. Over the following days, I played for him, shyly at first, then with growing confidence, sharing the haunting melodies of my people, the ballads of love and loss, even a few ancient Solara battle hymns, reimagined through the lens of my exile. He listened intently, sometimes closing his eyes, sometimes watching my face, his expression always thoughtful. It was during one of these evenings, after I had finished a particularly melancholic tune, that he broke the comfortable silence. "You are more than the Solaris scorn, Alara, more than Lysander's abandoned love. You are resilient, and you are here. The ancient bond chose you, and it chose me. I confess, when I first felt the claim, I resented it, another burden, another threat to my pack. But now?" He paused, his gaze meeting mine, unwavering. "Now I see what the ancestor saw. I see a strength that was forged in fire, a spirit that refuses to break. You are meant for more than the shadows you were cast into." His words were a revelation. They weren't just about the ancient laws, they were about me. For the first time, someone saw past my banishment, past my perceived flaws, past the ancient prejudice, and saw me. A strange, fluttering warmth bloomed in my chest, more potent than any herb draught. It was a feeling of being truly seen, truly valued. I don't understand," I managed, my voice thick with emotion. "Why me? Why you?" Kael leaned forward, his golden eyes intense. "Perhaps the prophecy isn't just about bringing two peoples together, Alara. Perhaps it's about two broken souls finding their own wholeness in each other. I am the alpha, yes, but I too carry the wounds of loneliness, of a destiny I did not choose. We are both outcasts in a way. You from your past, me from a future I thought was mine." He reached out, his large hand gently covering mine on the lute. His touch was warm, protective, sending a jolt through me that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a nascent, exhilarating possibility. I declare you my mate, Ilara, not just by ancient law, but by the burgeoning truth in my heart. I will protect you, I will honor you, and I will help you find the strength you never knew you possessed. My breath hitched. The words were a torrent, washing away years of rejection and self-doubt. My mind, so long dwelling on Lysander's face, now saw only Kale's, a wolf, an enemy, my forbidden mate. And suddenly, the idea wasn't terrifying, it was a promise of a future I never dared to dream of. Here is a riddle for you, brave soul. I am worn by those who love, but often found in the heart of despair. I am a circle, yet I mark an end and a new beginning. What am I? Chapter 6. Kale's confession shifted the very ground beneath my feet. It was not merely the alpha claiming his mate by ancient decree. It was a declaration from a man who saw me, who valued me beyond my bloodline or my past. The bond between us, once a heavy chain of fate, began to transform into something delicate yet powerful, a tapestry woven from shared stories, quiet understandings, and an undeniable, growing respect. My confidence, long dormant under the weight of my banishment and heartbreak, began to blossom. I started venturing further, always within Kale's territory, exploring the ancient forests that whispered with their own secrets. I began to observe the pack more closely, no longer as a wary outsider, but as someone who might, one day, be a part of it. I learned their rhythms, their subtle cues, the way they communicated without words. One crisp morning, while Kale was out with his hunting party, a tense situation unfolded near the lodge. A young pup, no older than a human toddler, had strayed too close to an older, battle-scarred wolf known for his short temper and deep-seated prejudice against vampires. The older wolf, Gorok, let out a low, menacing growl, his hackles raised, his eyes fixed on the small, whimpering pup. The pup's mother was nowhere in sight, and the other wolves hesitated, knowing Gorok's volatile nature. My vampire instincts, long suppressed, flared. Though smaller and physically less imposing than the hulking wolf, a fierce protectiveness surged through me. Without thinking, I stepped between Gorok and the pup. My voice, though not a growl, held an unexpected command. "Enough, Gorok. This is a child." Gorok snarled, his lips peeling back from massive teeth. "Stay out of this, vampire. This is pack business." "No," I countered, my eyes meeting his, drawing upon a reserves of courage I hadn't known I possessed. "This is cruelty, and Kale would not permit it." I stood my ground, my posture firm, shielding the terrified pup with my body. The pup, though risk was immense, he could easily rip me apart, but in that moment, all I saw was the vulnerable creature behind me. Gorok hesitated, his golden eyes flickering from me to the pup. The other wolves watched, silent and tense. My reference to Kale and the unexpected defiance in my voice seemed to momentarily stun him. Slowly, grudgingly, he lowered his hackles, letting out a frustrated huff before turning and stalking away. The small pup, whimpering, nuzzled against my leg. I knelt, gently stroking its soft fur, feeling a warmth spread through me. When I looked up, Lyra, the young she-wolf who had left me gifts, was approaching, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and a newfound respect. Other pack members who had witnessed the exchange looked at me differently, their gazes less hostile, more curious. Later that evening, Kale returned, having heard of the incident. He found me by the fire, the pup nestled against me, fast asleep. He simply watched me, a small, proud smile playing on his lips. "You defended one of mine, Ilara," he said, his voice soft. "Without thought for your own safety. You acted as a Luna should." "I merely did what was right," I replied, feeling a flush of warmth. "And in doing so, you have earned their respect in a way I could not have commanded.
They see your heart, Ilara, not just your blood. He settled beside me, his large hand gently stroking the sleeping pup. The ancient pact speaks of a union that brings peace, but also of a challenge that defines it. Our bond, Ilara, is about more than just us. It is about bridging two worlds, and soon, I fear, that bridge will be tested. I looked into his eyes, understanding the gravity of his words. The unspoken peace between our worlds was fragile, constantly threatened by old hatreds. But now, with Kale beside me and a burgeoning strength within, I no longer felt like a banished outcast. I felt like a Luna, ready to face whatever came, with him at my side. Chapter 7. The challenge Kale had spoken of arrived sooner than we anticipated, carried on a gust of wind, cold and sharp as a vampire's blade. A patrol of the Solara Coven, led by the ruthless regent, a woman who had spearheaded my banishment, appeared on the fringes of the Redwood territory. Their presence sent a ripple of unease through Kale's pack, their predatory scent tainting the crisp forest air. Kale gathered his senior warriors, his face grim. "They come for you, Ilara," he stated, his voice low and firm. "The regent demands your return, claiming you violated the terms of your banishment by fraternizing with abominations. She threatens war if I do not surrender you." My heart hammered against my ribs. The regent, the woman who had ripped my world apart. The thought of returning to her clutches, of being dragged back to face her judgment, filled me with a terror far greater than any werewolf snarl. But this time, I wasn't alone. Kale stood beside me, his protective aura a tangible force. "She will not take you," Kale declared, his golden eyes blazing with fierce resolve. "You are my mate, my Luna. I will stand against them." We met them at the border, a natural clearing where ancient redwood trees formed a formidable wall. On one side stood Kale, his warriors flanking him, their forms powerful and ready for battle, their eyes burning with loyalty. On the other, the regent, her face a mask of cold fury, surrounded by her impeccably dressed, equally stone-faced vampire guard. Her gaze, when it found me, was filled with contempt. "Ilara," the regent sneered, her voice like ice. "The disgraced Solara. Return to your coven and accept your penance. This beast has no claim over you." Kale stepped forward, placing a hand on my back, a silent testament to his bond. "She is no longer of your coven, regent. She is mine, by ancient law and by choice." "Choice?" The regent laughed, a chilling sound. "A banished creature has no choice. Your kind are savage animals, Alpha. She is nothing but a captive, a pawn." The insult ignited a spark within me, an ember that had been fanned into a roaring flame by Kale's love and the respect I had found here. "I am no captive," I cried, my voice ringing with a strength I hadn't known I possessed. "I was a captive in your coven, a prisoner of your traditions and your hatred. Kale has given me more freedom, more worth than you ever did." I stepped forward, pulling free of Kale's hand, meeting the regent's icy gaze with my own newfound fire. "I declare my love for Kale, Alpha of the Redwood Pack. I choose him, and I choose this pack. If you want me, Regent, you will have to fight for me, and you will have to fight him." My words echoed through the clearing, a shockwave that silenced both sides. The regent's face contorted in disbelief, then rage. "You dare defy me, abomination! You have sullied your bloodline beyond redemption!" As she raised her hand, her guards lunged forward. Kale let out a guttural roar, transforming into his massive wolf form, his fur bristling, his fangs bared. His warriors followed suit, the clearing erupting into a maelstrom of fur and fang against the regent's silent, swift assassins. But something else happened. As I declared my love, as I faced down the regent, a warmth spread through my chest, radiating outward. Not just a feeling, but a pulsing energy. A soft, iridescent light, like moonlight infused with starlight, emanated from my very being, washing over the clearing. The regent's guards, caught in its glow, faltered, their movements slowing, their rage momentarily suspended. This was no aggressive power, no destructive force. It was a soothing, protective aura, born of my pure Solara bloodline, intertwined now with the protective magic of the Alpha's claim. I remembered Kale's words about finding the strength I never knew I possessed. This was it, a power of peace, of calming, born from love and defiance. It wasn't about fighting like them, it was about protecting what was mine. "You cannot have her," Kale snarled, his wolf form a blur of motion, protecting his pack. The regent, realizing the strange power emanating from me, her face pale with grudging awe, knew she was outmatched. This was not the weak, heartbroken vampire she had banished. This was a Luna, empowered by a forbidden love, wielding a magic she did not understand. With a frustrated snarl, she motioned to her remaining guards. "We retreat, but this is not over, Alpha. Your abomination will be your undoing." As quickly as they had arrived, the Solara coven vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a profound silence, broken only by the heavy breathing of Kale's pack, now slowly returning to human form, their eyes wide with wonder as they looked at me. I stood there, trembling, the iridescent glow slowly fading, my heart still pounding, but not from fear, but from exhilaration. I had faced my past, declared my love, and defended my future. I was no longer Alara, the banished vampire. I was Alara, the Alpha's forbidden mate and Luna of the Redwood Pack. The deepest truths are often found not in the light we seek, but in the shadows we are forced to embrace. Chapter 8. The standoff with the regent marked a profound turning point, not only for me, but for the entire Redwood Pack. My display of power, a serene, protective aura that calms their enemies without inflicting harm, cemented their respect. The whispers of vampire witch faded, replaced by murmurs of Luna, of protector. I had proven myself, not with fangs and claws, but with a courage born of love and a unique, inherent magic. Kael held me close after the regent's retreat, his hands trembling slightly, his relief palpable. "You truly are remarkable, Alara," he murmured, his lips pressing against my temple. That was a power I have only read of in the oldest texts, a calming shield, a gift of the Solara's true lineage, long thought lost. It awakens only when pure blood is joined with a pure bond. I had never known such power existed within me, a subtle yet profound ability that didn't seek to harm, but to protect and to quell. It was a reflection of the peace I now sought to foster, a stark contrast to the destructive, fear-mongering powers of my old coven. Over the next few months, Kael and I worked tirelessly to solidify the fragile peace. We sent emissaries not just to the other wolf packs, but to neutral vampire covens, spreading word of our unique union and its potential for a new era. The ancient laws, once a burden, became a foundation. Our relationship grew, deep and unyielding, built on mutual respect, shared burdens, and an emotional intimacy that transcended our species. We spent hours in his ancestral library, unearthing forgotten scrolls that spoke of the true purpose of the forbidden mate bond, not just for love, but for balance, for a new beginning for both races. The pack, initially wary, now embraced me. Lyra, the young she-wolf, became a fiercely loyal friend, teaching me the nuances of wolf customs and the lore of the forest. I, in turn, shared stories of my coven's history, stripping away the myths and prejudices that had festered for centuries. We learned that the Great Sundering wasn't just a curse, but a calculated division by an ancient malevolent force that feared a united front. Our union, Kael explained, was a chance to finally mend that division. One cold evening, as the first snow of winter fell, Kael presented me with a simple, intricately carved silver band, adorned with a single clear moonstone. "This is not just a symbol of our bond, Ilara," he said, slipping it onto my finger. "It is a promise of a future where our peoples walk in harmony. You, my forbidden mate, have shown me that love does not weaken, it empowers. You have not just become my Luna, you have become the bridge between our worlds." I looked down at the ring, then up at his strong, kind face, my heart overflowing. I had been banished for loving a rival, cast out and left to die. But in that wilderness, I found not just survival, but destiny. I found a love that was forbidden by ancient hatreds, but affirmed by ancient prophecies. I, Ilara, the banished vampire, had become Luna of the Redwood Pack, and in doing so, found my true strength, my true purpose, and my true home, in the arms of the alpha wolf who declared me his forbidden mate. Epilogue. Years later, the Redwood territories thrived, a beacon of peace in a world that had once known only strife. Our union, Kael's and mine, had sparked a quiet revolution. Emissaries from various vampire covens and wolf packs now gathered in our Grand Lodge, discussing alliances, trading knowledge, and, slowly but surely, dismantling the walls of prejudice that had stood for millennia. I, Ilara, once a disgraced exile, now stood as Luna, respected and loved, not despite my heritage, but because of how I chose to weave it into a new tapestry of existence. My protective aura, once a subtle glow, had grown stronger, a soothing presence that helped mediate disputes and foster understanding. Kael and I ruled side by side, our individual strengths complementing each other. He, the fierce protective alpha, guardian of his pack and our lands. I, the diplomatic Luna, weaving bonds of empathy and understanding, a testament to the power of a love that defied all expectations. Our home, the Grand Lodge, was filled with the laughter of pack children and the quiet hum of scholarly pursuits. We had created a legacy, not of war, but of hope. And as I looked out at the tranquil, snow-covered forest, Kael's strong arm around my waist, I knew that every pain, every rejection, every moment of loneliness I had endured had led me here. It had forged me into the woman I was meant to be, a woman who understood that true worth was not found in conformity, but in courage, vulnerability, and the transformative power of a love that dared to be forbidden. It is only when we are brave enough to lose everything that we truly discover what we are meant to find. Can you solve the riddle? I have cities, but no houses, forests, but no trees, and water, but no fish. What am I? Share your answer below. Thank you for joining me on Ilara's journey. If you loved this tale of forbidden love and finding strength in banishment, please subscribe for more ShifterRomance adventures and hit the bell to never miss a story. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, keep believing in your own impossible happy ever afters.